So Microsoft's new console is officially called the Xbox One, and we have the first information on it. What is going on, guys and girls? I'm Ghost Robo, and I'm here to tell you all about today's Microsoft Xbox One new Xbox reveal conference and give you my thoughts and opinions on it. So first off, let's start with the name. The thing is revealed to be an all-in-one entertainment system called Xbox One, primarily because it's the one source of entertainment in your living room, I guess is what they're going for. The conference was heavily focused on TV features, on integration with other devices, on Skype, on social interaction, and not very much on games. So Xbox One is now your one-stop shop for everything you do in your living room. I, for one, had hoped that the system would be called Xbox Infinity, and personally feel like Xbox One is a big mistake of a name. When I think of Xbox One, when I Google Xbox One, when I talk to my friends about Xbox One, when I reference Xbox One on YouTube, I'm thinking of that big, chunky, black box that I had 10 years ago. Xbox One, to me, references Microsoft's first system, the Xbox One, the first Xbox they made. So why calling this new system Xbox One? It kind of boggles my mind. I think Infinity would be a great future-proof choice. It sounds cool, it sounds risky, it sounds progressive, it sounds like, hey, it's an infinite source of entertainment. There's infinite options. It does everything, Infinity. I thought that was a really cool, marketable slogan. I don't really know what you do with Xbox One, except like I said, Xbox One source of everything, one source of entertainment. After they did that name little shindig, which I really don't like, I personally really let down by that name choice, they moved on to showing the actual box, and this is where I began to sweat, because that box, again, this video is all about my opinions on the conference, on the Xbox, and I will be buying both systems, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, and frankly, I want them both to be great, because I want great games. I'm a hardcore gamer, and I love great games, and that's why this conference was so disappointing, because it seemed to focus on everybody but me. Everybody but the person who loves games to death, and plays a ton of them, and can't wait for all the new releases. So their box is like a gigantic brick from hell. It's like a VCR thrown into the future by Marty McFly. I don't know where they got this design. It's supposed to look, I guess, like substantial, like it has some value, some weight to it, because it's this big chunky piece of technology. It's like two-tone chrome, not chrome, more like gray, like what's that stuff called? Like jet black, or what's it called? It's the kind of metal. I'm blanking on it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's that metal look with black on one side, and they made it very industrial. Like the whole thing looks like it's either a cable box or, to me, a combo between a VCR and like one of those older like CD player, like audio mixer things that people would put on their entertainment displays. But maybe that's the point. It's supposed to look like it fits in with anything that you could throw on your TV set. So it's not like a kid thing. But for me, again, as a gamer, like, I love the form factor of the 360. I like that it has some shape to it. This is just a brick. This is just a rectangle. This is just a box. And I wanted something like futuristic looking, something really cool. You know, when people have been making mock-ups of next-gen consoles for years now, they've been throwing all these psycho designs. I knew that it would never be that crazy, some weird sphere or some gigantic cube. But do something a little bit creative. I mean, the Wii U is my least favorite looking console of all time. It's this thin little rectangle that I lie down and it looks like it's just sad. It just sits there sad. I mean, it doesn't have any games to play, so it already is sad, but it looks like a sad system. And now the Xbox is just going to be this big square rectangle hunk of plastic and metal and whatever else. Underneath that kind of ugly exterior, though, is 8 gigs of RAM, USB 3.0, Wi-Fi, of course, Blu-ray disc drive, and a bunch of other things. It supposedly is silent, has Kinect 2.0, which they were very keen on, all the different millions, trillions, gazillion points of interactions that it registers things in 13 billions of a second or some crazy minute amount of time, and it supposedly can read your heartbeat, which is a little bit terrifying. I don't really want the all-seeing eye of Kinect to search inside my soul for a heartbeat, but I guess it is kind of cool for what they could do with it, and they sort of moved on from there to talk about the other piece of the system, which is the controller. The controller, man, I love the Xbox controller. If you guys know me or have watched my past videos, I don't really proclaim myself to be a fanboy of any specific system. I like great games, and I'm more comfortable with the 360 because it records easier on my computer for YouTube, and I like the controller, the form factor of the 360 controller, better than I like the PlayStation controller. But in terms of which box I play my games on, you know, look, I'm just as excited for The Last of Us exclusively on PlayStation 3 as any game coming out this year. So Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, I just want the best games. I'll play Mario on the Wii, I'll play my Halo on my Xbox, I'll play my Uncharted on my PS4, and I'll be happy. That's really what I want. But that controller that they showed off today, whew, it looks rough. Almost everything that when they first showed that system, I thought it was like renders. I thought it was like fake Photoshop stuff or something, because that's what it looked like. It looked so industrial and so like flat. I mean, that controller are people's fingers turning flat? Is this like an evolution in humanity that I'm not aware of? Flat hands, flat fingers. Don't I want something a little bit more rounded to fit my round hands? I mean, I don't have circular hands, obviously. I'm not some cyborg alien from the future past. I want something that doesn't. I mean, that controller, honestly, it reminds me of like the Ouya controller, of like cheap knockoff third-party controllers you could buy for your mobile device, like an iPad attach-on controller. The main thing I don't get about it, while the D-pad does look better, is why the Xbox logo is on like this extra piece of plastic that looks like it was attached on. And they touted that it has 40 innovations, one of which is a better battery pack design. What? Huh? I mean, I just felt like they weren't speaking to me at all this entire conference. Again, as someone who plays 80 to 100 games a year, as someone who has loved gaming since I was like 3 or 4 years old, as someone that grew up with the first like big American home console, the NES. You know, obviously there was things before that, but like the first big thing, like with Mario and moving through the generations of the SNES, the N64, the PlayStation 1, the Dreamcast, like I've been through a lot of gaming history, and therefore I can safely declare myself a hardcore core gamer. I don't care about secondary features. I don't care about social integration, and that's just me. I'm sure there's plenty of people that this will appeal to, and in an era when things become more and more expensive, when marketing costs skyrocket, when production costs skyrocket, when risk-reward has to be taken much more seriously, you know, targeting a mainstream is probably a smart move. And it just didn't hit me very well. Brand new thing, Skype in full screen. Like, who cares? I mean, the thing I don't understand, and what I was screaming at my TV the entire time I was watching this, which good on them for providing a good quality stream. I thought it was excellent. I'm like Don Matrick, the guy presenting, like, Don, I have a smartphone, and it's with me almost always. Don, I have a computer. Don, I have the internet. And some people could say, well, Ghost, not everybody has those things, and that's true, but trust me, if you are buying an Xbox One, you have a TV and internet connection. Otherwise, you can't really use the system. And I would venture to say the majority of people that can go out and buy a $500 console or whatever this thing ends up costing do have a phone or a computer that they can use Skype, Twitter, Facebook, and go check their fantasy football team. I mean, the whole ESPN integration, I guess it's cool if you're really hardcore about that, but even for myself as a huge sports fan, as someone that coaches high school sports, as someone that played sports all throughout my high school years, I don't see any appeal in that. You know, for me, it boils down to if I want to watch TV, I turn on the TV. If I want to play Xbox, I turn on the Xbox. There's never really a moment when I'm like switching back and forth, and they showed off this snapping feature that, for me, the good part about that is Xbox is so slow to load. Oh my God, bringing up that guide when you first turn it on, switching panels is just, it's like walking through freaking slug poop and molasses combined into one disgusting, slow, chortle journey of just vomit. And so if they can speed that up, like, I really am happy about that. But like the whole thing of like snapping between TV and Xbox, when am I doing this? I'm like, oh God, I'm in the middle of this intense multiplayer round of Call of Duty Ghosts. Let me switch to TV. What? The Price is Right is on. I gotta catch it. I mean, I guess if you're playing a single player game and you're like really ADD about it and want to swap back and forth, but other than that, I know they want to integrate with TV. I mean, they didn't really make any announcements on cable company partnerships, if they're going to do something with Comcast, if they're going to do something with any of those guys, but I can't, for me personally, I can't see the appeal of switching. I mean, I have an input button on my remote. Do you not have an input button on your remote? Am I missing something? Am I missing something that my TV just, like, if I want to switch input, I press the button on my remote? Is it that hard? Is it that hard? And furthermore, like, oh my God, you can turn on the Xbox by saying Xbox on. I have no problem pressing the guide button for 2 seconds and turning it on. In fact, I would prefer that, because I feel really ridiculous saying Xbox on around other people. And if it's late, or if it's, you know, whatever, if there's other people in the room talking, I don't want to have my Kinect be like blah, 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 and having this brain fart where it can't figure out what to do. Supposedly it's more precise, it can hear you. Great. If it can, that's awesome. It could lead to some interesting things, perhaps. But for me, the appeal of like this TV switching, of this integration with the NFL and stuff, like, while I love those things on TV, while I love those things checking ESPN.com, or, you know, watching NFL season ticket through DirecTV, like, I don't see the value in making that a toutable feature for your game system. And what had me sad the most about this conference was like, it's just like a proof that everything that I want / really like is not the main thing anymore. It's not the mainstream. My type of personality, my type of person who wants a hardcore dedicated gaming box that just does awesome games and like focuses all of its might, strength, willpower on that, like, that person is shrinking. We're becoming more rare. And I would hope that right now watching this video, there's a bunch of you out there. I mean, if you're watching my videos on YouTube, if you're spending money on games, if you're playing these awesome titles like Metro Last Light, like Bioshock Infinite, if you're pumped for these next-gen consoles, I assume that at least a good chunk of you are hardcore gamers, and you had to feel a little bit let down that the entire focus of this was like, hey, we can do everything that every other device can do. I know all-in-one devices is the future. It's where things are going. Everybody wants to be the king of the living room, per se. You know, that's what Apple has kind of started that trend, or maybe they didn't start it, but they're a big pusher of that trend. And Sony and Microsoft are both going for that same goal of, hey, we want to be the box in your living room. And I don't know if that's a move to do it all because everything does it all, and so they kind of just do it by default, or a move to, hey, you can buy us and not give your money to other companies, or maybe you'll spend more money on us if it does I don't really know what the impetus is, except that it's what the mainstream likes, and that's not me anymore. You know, I felt like when the Dreamcast was released, when the GameCube was released, when the PlayStation 2 was released, I felt like I was their target. I felt like I was who they were going after, and that was my new hope for the Wii U, when it was like, oh, this is going to be a hardcore gaming system, and it wasn't. It hasn't turned out to be that. The PlayStation 4, they spoke a big game at their conference about it being that, but who knows, and I will be making a follow-up video to this sort of on the console wars in general, my feelings on where each company stands right now before we enter E3 and before we enter the launch window, the launch period coming later this year. But Microsoft moved on from there and said that it will be launching later this year, which is my favorite month of the year, later this year, as if we didn't know that. I just love how so much of this stuff was known for months, and I know they have to officially state it, but like they act like it's this big surprise, like, oh my god, maybe it was coming in 2017. No. And then they went on to show off a little bit of their interface, which again, it's borrowing from that Metro Windows 8 look, and looked fun. It has fast snapping, great. They talked Xbox Live, your membership does carry over, nice thing. I bet they'll keep the price the same, which is cool. Achievements and gamer score transfer over, very cool. More of an emphasis on achievements and kind of more dynamic achievements. They didn't go into it much, but that sounds pretty good. One thing they didn't mention at the conference is supposedly Microsoft points are gone. It's going to be a universal currency, a normal money person, what you carry in your wallet currency, which should make things easier and not have those awkward moments where you're left with 140 points and don't know what to do with them. So applause there. And then they started showing the games. They talked about, okay, now we're going to get to the games. It took like 35 minutes for them to get there, which I thought was a little bit odd. Again, not targeted really towards the hardcore gamer, but they did start showing games, and Forza 5 was the first they showed. Strangely, there was no gameplay revealed at this entire conference, except from Call of Duty Ghosts at the very end, and it was a very tiny bit of gameplay. So they showed off some Forza 5. I think actually first they showed an EA Sports demo reel, but the first like game that they Xbox One exclusive was Forza 5, and that looked pretty good. But again, it's just CG. It's just I mean maybe it was in engine, but it definitely wasn't gameplay at all. The EA Sports thing like looked good. Like man, if my NBA game can look that good, I could forgive a lot of these other things, but I don't think it really can. I think that's a lot of bull shots like we got with Killzone 2 and games like that this past generation. And the weird part was I thought a lot of this stuff looked really cartoony. Really cartoony. I don't know if it was like an Uncanny Valley thing or if it's just that's what they're going for, but you'd think more intense graphical power would lead one to create more lifelike and like photorealistic models. And we saw a little bit of that from the Ghost behind the scenes at the end, but with the EA Sports stuff, like especially NBA, a little bit with Madden, and then even Forza, like I got this very like cartoony vibe to it. And I don't know if it's like the intensity of the colors or if it was just the way that it was rendered, but it looked really cartoony, and I'm interested to see if you guys felt the same way, if you've seen some of those videos. But yeah, I mean, if NBA 2K16-17 can look like that, awesome. But there was no gameplay shown, so there's no proof of what any of it looks like. And if we know anything about these kinds of conferences, they overpromise on graphics more than they do anything, right? I mean, I was talking to someone saying that I think that really, the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 graphics are going to be very similar to what we were promised for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. If you look at some of that stuff, it reminds me a lot of what some of the sizzle reels for the last generation showed off, like, ooh, this is where we can go. And I do want to point out and have people remember, and I try to reiterate this point so that people don't forget, like, if you look back at the first year of Xbox 360, Perfect Dark Zero, Cameo, and see how far we've come in both gameplay and graphics, man, it's incredible. So don't judge a book by its cover and think that, oh, the graphics aren't that much better. They are better, first of all. And second of all, over the next 5 to 7 years, however long this generation lasts, they're going to get significantly better. If the past generations are anything to compare to, man, they will evolve. And I know that it is it's not really an exponential curve. It's sort of a a lessening curve of, oh, how far can we push graphics, but they will get better, systems will improve, and overall the games will get a lot better. So even if you're like, so far on the visuals, don't worry, that the fruit that these consoles will bear has yet to be seen. We'll see that over the course of the next few years. They also showed off a new project from Remedy, which was the most exciting thing I thought in the entire conference, because I love Alan Wake, and I even loved Alan Wake American Nightmare. I wanted a full sequel, but I was kind of expecting Alan Wake 2 to be revealed here, but instead it was a game called Quantum Break that I don't know if they borrowed from Beyond Two Souls, the Quantum Dream game, but it's a girl with like superpowers, but they're doing, again, the TV thing, sort of merging reality with television, which is a really cool concept and something I thought Alan Wake delivered on hardcore. This one seems to be more sci-fi, more like natural disasters, more craziness going on, which I think could be really cool. Again, no gameplay and no real sense of exactly what's happening in that world, but it looked like a fun place to be. Mixing the lifelike footage, like the real life, actual human footage, with some game type footage, I don't think that ever plays well. I think it just makes the games look weird. Because you're like, wait, that was a real person, now it's not real people. But they didn't really show anything at all gameplay, so who knows how that thing's going to end up looking, or what the heck kind of game it's going to play. Assuming shooter / exploration game, kind of in the vein of Alan Wake. Alan Wake's a great game. Next gen that baby up, add in more open world, more cool visual systems, a better combat, and you could have a killer app. They said there are going to be 15 exclusives for Xbox One in the first year, 8 of which will be new franchises, and that right there is a cool thing. The fact that they are having some commitment to new IPs, and I've said this over and over, that the first year of a console is the best time to test out new things. If you look back at last gen, it was that case. There's a smaller set of people who have the system, so you don't have to sell 10 million copies to be successful. You just have to make a good game, and so people can kind of do more risky projects, can take chances, we want to make a game that just takes advantage of this particular aspect of the console, and see where we can take that, and maybe do something more fun, more original, more creative, and not be tied down to, oh my god, we have to compete with, Halo and Call of Duty and all this stuff that has been established on said system for years and years and years. But of course there was a Call of Duty and Call of Duty Ghosts. They brought out and they touted its, DLC comes first to Xbox, which is a big thing. And the fact that they have these big properties there, even if they're not exclusives, they're multi-platform games, most definitely, but just showing them with the Xbox name is a big push for the general public, because Call of Duty became associated with 360 this gen. If they can do that again, that's a huge sales push, especially in the United States. So they show a behind-the-scenes look of, they're making a brand new story, which is that America's crippled and you have to save it. I don't think that's really brand new. A lot of hyperbole at this entire conference. So many buzzwords thrown around. Humanity in your sports games. We want better reactions. We want to make it lifelike. We talk to players and athletes about what makes sports. I was just like, really? Okay, how about you go make a game? Thanks for thinking all philosophical with me, but let's go make a game, buddy. And Call of Duty Ghosts, what they did show, there was snippets of gameplay in there, I think. Did look pretty good. At times, it looked really far along and like, hey, this is a evolutionary step visually, and at times it looked like a version of Black Ops 2. It is a cross-gen game. They definitely are going to release Ghosts on all platforms, so I don't think it's the best test of how far you can push something. I'm sure they are doing their best to push it, but remembering that this game has to run on 2 different generations of hardware, totally different structures, my bet is that the true exclusives are going to look better. Like for PlayStation 4, Killzone Shadowfall, Infamous Second Son, for Xbox, this Quantum Break, and whatever else they reveal. No real talk about any of the major franchises in terms of games. They did bring out a woman who talked about Halo, and that Steven Spielberg is working on a TV project. Again, this has nothing to do with the system I'm spending $500 on, so it's probably exclusive in some way to Xbox, but what this conference was really lacking was a reason for me to buy the system. Now, of course, I will buy the system. I'm a hyper game fan. I do YouTube, and I'm gonna get it. And I want to play the games, and I'm sure there'll be awesome games. But in terms of hey, selling to me, they didn't do that, and I don't think that was their goal. That wasn't their intention, and that's why I left this conference really And I didn't think I could be left like that. After the PlayStation conference, which in retrospect was pretty darn good. After that moment, I was like, wow, Microsoft couldn't do worse than this, because I thought that they spent so much time on these side features and sharing, which they did briefly mention that the Xbox One is going to have sharing and video editing features and all that. So as much as people wanted to say, that's a great unique feature for the PlayStation 4, it's not anymore. I never thought it would be. I think that games are what's going to define this generation, as the systems become very similar to themselves and to PCs in general. But they're not speaking to me at all. And the PlayStation 4 one, at least they showed some more games. And there weren't really a whole bunch of exclusives there either place, but at least they're like, hey, this is the products we're making. The Xbox, like, I know it's coming out this year, but they could have said, and this will be released in 2015, and I would have believed them because of how little they showed and because of how rough that hardware looked. Man, I'm guessing you show a box after Sony doesn't show a box, it has to be final, right? Like, they're not going to, oh crap, like, I've heard that parts are already shipping for this thing so that they're going to start, assembling them and get the factories cooking up. But I mean, my takeaways overall is that, yes, our worst fears, at least us as hardcore gamers, is confirmed. It's going to be an all-in-one box, and their focus is going to be entirely on entertainment and Kinect, at least on the service. Now, the saving grace is that the games will still be awesome. They're not going to have a game where you switch back and forth from your TV to your Xbox. They're not going to have a game where you have to sit there and scroll through the laundry list of features that the Xbox One has. They're not going to have a game that matters whether it's called Xbox One or Xbox Infinity. So awesome games, whatever they have, will be great. And that is the promise that I am desperately clinging to as I walk away from this conference. Looking forward to E3 in just a few short weeks. I will be there. Officially now, I can confirm that I will be there bringing you tons of coverage of games, of what's going on, of the feel of the system, both gameplay, direct gameplay, filmed gameplay, me on the show floor, my experiences, my impressions, my analysis. It's going to be a great time. It's my 4th convention I've done after some PAXs and E3 last year, so I should be able to cover it in a great way. And hopefully there we'll really see what is going on with this Xbox One, what is going on with the PlayStation 4, because once, until I get it in my hands, I can't really judge the system. All I can judge is this conference's presentation, and for me, it was a flop. It was a big flop because of what they didn't do, what they didn't... The emphasis that they did not bring, which was this is a games thing. And I will give Sony credit for at least coming out and saying, hey, this is a game system. I don't know if they're going to actually deliver on that. It still has all the social features. It's going to have many of the same apps, many of the same integrations. I'm sure some specific brand deals here, this one for Sony, that one for Microsoft. But overall, it will do majority, 90%, I venture to say, of the same kinds of things, internet browsing, blah, blah, blah. But what games are going to define each console? And I like that Sony at least made an effort to wow me there. E3 is where it's really at for us, for us hardcore gamers. So Nintendo with their directs and Sony and Microsoft with their press conferences will bring a boatload of games. And the takeaway that is exciting from all of this is that because they showed so little at both conferences, it's going to be a packed E3. E3 is going to be just games. I mean, I'm sure they'll retout some of the features of the system and do a little Kinect dance on stage, and, Sony will do their little whatever with the Move. But it's going to be mainly games and a games-driven show, which is awesome. It's awesome for me because I'm a hardcore gamer and I love it. It's awesome for you because you're going to get to see a ton of sweet stuff and get a ton of great impressions on the actual games. And I think, walking out of the LA Convention Center after that week in June, we'll feel a lot better about this system. The name, it's not the greatest name. We'll get used to it. The Wii had a crappy name, and people thought it was terrible at first, and it sold, like hotcakes. So, me personally, I was very disappointed by this conference. I'm trying to keep this video and my overall mind pretty level-headed. I was fuming as the conference was going on because I was just so let down. I was really crossing my fingers Microsoft would deliver for me, even though I kind of knew I was going to be disappointed. I was telling, people were saying, what do you think about the Xbox conference? What are your expectations? And I was telling my friends, like, I have no expectations because I'm worried I'm going to be let down. But I secretly did have expectations. I couldn't help it. I wanted this thing to be awesome, and it wasn't. But that doesn't mean that the system won't be awesome. And again, I love games. I want games to be great. I don't care if I play them on the PlayStation, on the Xbox, or on the Wii U, or on the PC, or on the Vita, or on the 3DS, or on my phone. If it's a great game, score. I win, you win, we all win. Awesome games make awesome games. And that's all that I have to say on that. It doesn't matter what system it's for. I'm not a fanboy of anybody. If you ever thought I was a Microsoft fanboy, hopefully this video confirms that I'm not, because I didn't have a whole lot of good things to say on them. I'll have more videos like this coming as we approach E3, throughout E3, and then as we near launch later this fall. But yeah, that's the Xbox One conference in a nutshell. Really shocked on the name. I don't think anyone saw that coming. Still don't really understand what they were going with it. But overall, I guess if you had to pin me to a wall and make me predict what this conference was going to be like, this is probably what I would have envisioned, although I would have guessed a little bit more gameplay. Again, Call of Duty Ghost showed off a teensy bit, but not a whole lot. They talked about, some new features that they're bringing to that. It looked better when they showed it, like they showed some direct comparisons, like model by model, and it looked a lot better for what they're able to do, from a strictly polygon count matter. They talked about dynamic multiplayer maps. I don't really like that idea, but that's for another video, more about Call of Duty. This one should sum up the Xbox conference and my thoughts on it overall. Pretty disappointed right now. If I had to, like, if I'm thinking of like a bar graph or like a pie chart of where I would align my hopes and dreams for this generation, if I would put the PlayStation 4 a little bit ahead right now, just because they have promised me, Killzone Shadowfall and Infamous Second Son probably at launch, and if not very soon after, and those two games have me jonesing to play them. Quantum Break looks really cool. I don't know anything more about it. I can tell you what Killzone Shadowfall will be like. I can tell you what Infamous Second Son will be like. I can kind of maybe guess what Quantum Break, but who knows. EA Sports games are on both platforms. COD Ghosts on both platforms. Forza 5 is a racing game. PlayStation 4 has Drive Club and eventually Gran Turismo. So, that's a wash. So right now, PlayStation 4 leads a little bit, but we'll see at E3. That's when I'll make my final judgments. That's when I'll be able to decide, okay, if you're going to buy one of these systems, what do I think you should go for, and based on what kind of person you are, and I plan to give you those full thoughts and feedbacks. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, I will be doing an overall console wars video a little bit later on, but just wanted to get this out as fast as possible to give you my take and give you the wrap-up of what's going down over at Microsoft today. Thanks so much for watching, guys and girls. Hit that like button if you're excited for the Xbox One, or if you enjoyed the video, or both. I am, for one, both. I enjoyed making the video, and I am excited for the Xbox One, even if they did let me down, and I give them a very bad D- rating for this conference. That doesn't mean the system gets a D-, though. It could turn out to be an A+ caliber box. It sure is a box. Thanks a lot for watching once again, guys and girls. Have a fantastic day. Drink some hot chocolate. Ghost Robo Army, let's go do this thing and take over the world when these next systems launch. It should be an awesome year, and I really I'm stoked. I'm still super excited. You can't kill my enthusiasm. You can't kill my excitement for a new generation of consoles. That's what I live for. I'm a huge gamer at heart, and I'm going to play some games. You guys hopefully can as well. Till that time, though, guys and girls, fantastic day. Drink some hot chocolate. We'll see you all later.